So Ghostbusters Afterlife is set to release next year, and I thought it would be the perfect time of the year to talk about it, especially since everybody is so optimistic about it. It's like watching a Care Bears movie. Meanwhile, I'm here like, it's going to fucking suck. Seriously, I can't find one single big YouTuber that speaks badly about this trailer. Of course, my search methods and wording might play a role in my finding, but still. Now I realize that I might have to eat my own words if this movie turns out to be decent, and I'm willing to accept it. Hell, I would welcome it. It would be worth it if we can finally get a good Ghostbusters movie. I love Ghostbusters. In fact, the first Ghostbusters is one of my favorite movies of all time. All the elements of that movie, from the cinematography to the soundtrack to the characters to the dialogue to the script, were perfectly executed in my opinion. So I would love to finally have another good Ghostbusters movie. But please, let me illuminate you on why I'm so apprehensive about this movie. First, let me take you back in time 5 years or so. The new trailer for Star Wars The Force Awakens hits, and the same people that are now praising the Ghostbusters Afterlife trailer were praising that trailer. Never mind that the story seemed a rehash of the original, or the fact that Kylo Ren was the poor man's version of Darth Vader, or the fact that we got a female lead in a time when politics infiltrated Hollywood and cared more about virtue signaling than actually telling a good story. And never mind that fucked up sword that made no sense. But everybody loved that trailer. So what do I see that other people don't? Well, first of all, I haven't been hit by this apparent wave of amnesia. I can still remember. So please excuse me for not jumping in gleeful joy when hearing of a new Ghostbusters movie, no matter how shiny and new it looks. Secondly, there are elements that made the original Ghostbusters movie work, that I find either completely missing or modified in the Afterlife trailer, which I think might affect the movie in a big way if they remain as we see them in the trailer. So let's start off with the cast, the kids. Yes, I know kids can act and they can portray just as good of a characters as the adults. But the problem is the original movie was set in a world which felt gritty and real. Grittiness that was utterly lacking in the neon bright 2016 cash grab, which tried too hard to be funny and not enough to make it look real and scary. And as a result, the movie ended up looking like Scooby-Doo. The original movie had multiple elements that worked to both ground the world in our reality and also help to make the fantasy elements seem that more believable, adding to the spookiness, with our main characters acting as a grounding point for the audience in that world. They had to deal with unemployment, bank loans with high tax returns, thanks to that one asshole friend.
You're never gonna regret this, Ray.
My parents left me that house. I was born there.
You're not gonna lose the house. Everybody has 3 mortgages nowadays.
To even not knowing where they'll get their money for their next meal.
I'm gonna need to draw some petty cash. I should take her out to dinner. We don't want to lose her.
This magnificent feast here represents the last of the petty cash.
Okay, slow down. Chew your food.
And the way they dealt with their problems was also really believable and relatable. It really felt like 3 friends trying to come up with ways of making money and survive. It just so happens that this time these types of friends had to deal with the supernatural. And these characters were tough New Yorkers of the 80s. They were rude, smoking, swearing, drinking, sleazy assholes that didn't care about your feelings. This, besides making them feel real, added to the believability and amplified the realness of the spookier parts, since it's always scarier if the characters in the world are believable, because it makes it possible for you to imagine yourself in those situations. And these characters weren't just passive passengers to the story, letting themselves be carried about by the plot. No, they were active participants, moving the story along. However, something tells me these kids will lack this sort of agency, and they will just react to the plot instead of shaping it. Or it will seem really forced, since they are kids walking around with 30-pound proton packs on their back, dealing with shit that would turn me whiter. And again, I'm okay if I'm wrong about this. Please, Afterlife, prove me wrong. But these kids wouldn't just go out there busting ghosts. It's not like it's their job. They should be in school or something. And speaking of which, the only reason we got these kids is because of the success of Stranger Things. I mean, the kid, Finn Wolfhard, cool name by the way, is clearly being typecast because of Stranger Things. And he's also been in the It remake, so it's clearly a thing. Don't get me wrong, the kid can act. My concern is the director, who to me seems like he wants to capitalize on the whole children in horror movie trope instead of focusing on telling a good Ghostbusters story, regardless of current trends. You need to use the appropriate characters. What's so hard about getting a bunch of assholes together who have some connection to the original movie and just have them ghost busting as their only way of making money in this world? You know, like in real life, where you might as well be trying to catch ghosts. Like how about getting Jack Black's character from School of Rock, a loser that can't accomplish anything, and force him to have to deal with this sort of stuff just to put bread on the table? Perfect. Or get, I don't know, Keanu or someone to play the scientist guy with a quirk here and there. And as an arc, make them have to live up to the legend that were their predecessors. No one trusting this new team to save the day, so who you gonna call? Going back to the original, remember that scene where Ray and Winston talk in the car? In my opinion, that is a good example of how important character dynamic can be, and how it can be used to create atmosphere while also giving us a little bit of lore. In this small exchange between Ray and Winston, Ray is interested in Dana's building while giving us some nice little details for us to nerd about, which again also works as establishing this world as being real. Meanwhile, Winston draws a parallel between what's going on and religion, and it hits Ray and the audience like, oh shit, this might be even bigger than we thought originally. It's creepy yet grounded. It felt like someone watched The Exorcist and then wanted to do something similar but made it funny. Now in Afterlife, I'm guessing we'll have Paul Rudd's character give us the sort of information that Ray would. But will he be able to deliver this information with the same impact? Especially when having to deal with the kids as the receptors? I kinda doubt it. First of all, he lacks the presence that Ray or Egon had, especially since Ray is played by Dan Aykroyd, who actually believes in this sort of stuff. Secondly, those two felt like they knew what they were talking about. And why wouldn't they? Dan Aykroyd and Harold Ramis are the actual writers of the movie, as opposed to Paul Rudd, who is just following the beats from the director, no offense. And speaking of atmosphere, the characters weren't the only elements used in creating it. New York City played a huge role in that. From the library to Dana's apartment building to the fire station, they're all old and we can imagine that they could have a dark history. I mean, the history of New York itself is very interesting and deep, with a lot of opportunities to tell creepy stories. Even Ghostbusters 2 capitalized on the history of the city, with some of the best scenes from that movie being connected with the history of the city itself. Instead, what do we get in Afterlife? Why, a generic town in the middle of nowhere that's plagued by earthquakes.
A town that isn't anywhere near a tectonic plate, that has no fault lines, no fracking, no loud music even, is shaking on a daily basis.
Is this Ghostbusters or Tremors? All I'm saying with this is that the environment will be a limiting factor when it comes to this movie. And I know that filming in New York would cost a fortune, but this is motherfucking Ghostbusters! And I haven't even mentioned the most important aspect of shooting this movie in New York compared to the sticks, the cinematography potential. Looking at the Afterlife trailer, I can tell that they're really trying to get the best camera angle and with the best lighting possible. Clearly the people working on this movie are competent, at least in this aspect. But there's only so much you can do with a setting like this. Case in point, I'm gonna play a bit from the original Ghostbusters to show how the setting and the grittiness of New York work together in forming an amazing and memorable cinematic moment. A moment that stuck with me ever since I was a child for how awesome it was. I mean, just look at this picture, the smog, the army and the police escort on a major boulevard. This scene is literally making love to New York. New Yorkers are probably getting a hard-on every time they see this. And it's understandable, since Ghostbusters and New York are basically connected at the shoulders, and there is no way in hell the new movie will be able to reprise this sort of movie magic badassery. Again, I don't want this movie to fail, and I can understand why some people like this trailer. It is clearly pulling all the nostalgia strings hard, focusing on the gear and the Ecto-1 with a darker, more serious lighting. Clearly they want to distance themselves from that colorful 2016 dog shit. Though, in my opinion, it still looks too crisp, and it's lacking some of the personality of the original movie. It probably has something to do with them filming it digitally rather than on film. And speaking of the Ecto-1, why does it sound like a Formula 1 car? And why does it have a gunner's seat? Is this movie a sequel to the Ghostbusters movies or the cartoon series? But these are just my nitpicks. Anyways, I think they want to show that they're showing respect to the original, Whether or not it will, we'll just have to see. And they're also trying to make a pretty big connection between the first movie and this by establishing that this area was owned by Shandor, the same guy that designed Dana's building and who was the leader of the cult of Gozer. However, I've also noticed some inconsistencies between the trailer and the actual Ghostbusters lore, because we are left to believe that Trevor, the main kid, is the grandson of Egon Spengler. However, when last time we saw Egon at the end of Ghostbusters 2 in 1989 or 1990, he didn't show any signs of being in a relationship or even having kids. Which means from 1990 he would have had to have a kid, that kid would have to grow old into an adult and have another kid which grows up to be a teenager. Now I'm no biological engineer, but it does seem like a very short time for all of that to happen. Unless they're ignoring Ghostbusters 2? The car doesn't look like how we last saw it either. Oh no. I've got a bad feeling about this. Last time a sequel ignored established lore, we got Disney's Star Wars, on the count of how those ignored the prequels. You can't just ignore the second movie, like it or not, it's canon, and it's not stupid enough or disconnected enough, like the 2016 one, that we're just willing to forget about it. You can do that with the 2016 one because clearly it wasn't set in the same universe, having Bill Murray's character be a skeptic. It also makes me feel like the new movie thinks it's better than the second movie already. Hold on, partner, who do you think you are? You've yet to prove jack shit. The nerve, the utter arrogance. Whatever, maybe they're not ignoring it, maybe it somehow makes sense. Another small inconsistency I've noticed is the scene with the trap flashing. That's not how those traps work. They can't hold a ghost for an extended period of time like that. They're meant to be emptied in the ecto containment system.
This is where we store all the vapors and entities and slimers that we trap. Very simple, really. A loaded trap here. Open, unlock the system. Insert the trap. Release. Close, lock the system. Set your entry grid. Neutronize your field. And the light is green. Trap is clean. Ghost is incarcerated here in our custom-made storage facility.
Now I've heard some people say that Egon might actually be in the trap, but I think these people are giving Hollywood too much credit. Whatever the reason is, I expect an explanation for it. And speaking of poor Egon, a lot of people seem to be really happy about the prospect of the original cast returning, or what's left of it. And it's true that the actors are listed in the movie. However, let's not forget that Bill Murray was listed in the 2016 Abomination, and we all know how that ended. So just having the original cast appear in the movie isn't a guarantee that the movie will be good. It all matters what they do in it. In my opinion, the original Ghostbusters need to play a huge and active role in this movie for it to be successful, but the trailer avoids revealing them, and I doubt the movie is trying to keep their huge involvement a secret. And I doubt Hollywood is smart enough to have like an 8-year plan with the way they'll reveal actors that will have a major part to play in the movie, by keeping them a secret and hitting us with the awesomeness in theaters. These people aren't smart enough to even attempt to pull that off. Instead, what I fear is the same thing that happened with The Last Jedi. Well, maybe not that bad, but they will most likely take a backseat to the new cast, which isn't the right thing to do in my opinion. You can have the new cast shine in the next movie if this one does good, but you will need the confidence in your product, and, well, a snake oil salesman wouldn't drink his own stuff and hope for a miracle, if you get my drift. Look, just let the original cast be heroes for one last time. Let them play a major role, let them shine. That's what people want, that's what the characters deserve, and that's the right thing to do. And it will make your movie not suck. And for the love of God, please don't prop up the new cast on the back of the old one, like what happened with Luke and Rey. Anyways, look. Bill and Ted Face the Music, in a way, is a good example of how to do a passing of the torch movie. Let the original cast shine, while having the next batch assist them and not having them be condescending know-it-alls. The more I'm thinking about this whole thing, I'm finding myself agreeing with Bill Murray and his decision for not wanting to star in any more Ghostbusters, unless the script was good. Looking back, his involvement with the 2016 disaster made that movie non-canon, and in a weird way he saved the franchise with that. But now here comes this thing. I'm okay with the series just dying, rather than having them pump out shit with the name Ghostbusters on it. That's why I'm so glad they can't just make another Back to the Future, because you know, they would do it if they could. Luckily the creators own the rights to that one, and they will never give the rights away as long as they're alive. Going back to the atmosphere one more time, since I feel this really needs to be hammered down, Ghostbusters needs to be scary funny, not funny scary. They need to approach this movie not as they would approach a comedy. Sure, it's funny, but that's not the main point of the movie. The direction I would give them would be, imagine making Poltergeist, but with funny characters. And there we go, full circle, back to the damn characters. They made a horror movie with a bunch of friends that are funny together, and we got Ghostbusters. And in my opinion, it's lightning in a bottle, and they will never be able to recapture the magic of the original. And anything less will be, well, less, and won't manage to satisfy the audience. And then they'll go on and blame us for it, not liking it. Anyways, I've talked enough about this. We'll just have to wait for the movie to come out, and hopefully it will prove me wrong. And it wouldn't be the first time I'm wrong, and I'm sure as hell it won't be the last. And this time I really hope I'm wrong. But fate has a weird sense of humor, and it always seems to want to prove me right when I want to be wrong. Oh well. Thank you for watching, and have a nice spooky day.